Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2021-22 season. My name is Dan and today I've got for you a Gameweek 5 episode of Buy, Sell, Keep, Avoid, the series where we try and look at the best transfers to make and the best transfers to not make in any given game week. So guys, if you are looking forward to this video, please do leave a like, please do subscribe if you're new around here. We've got to try and get to 90,000 subscribers very soon. That's the next target, and hopefully we can do it pretty soon. But guys, before we get on to the rules of the video, a quick shout out to our sponsor of today's video, which is of course OneFootball. Now, those of you who don't know what OneFootball is, it's a great app / website for all things football. Now, OneFootball was actually really particularly useful for this game week just gone, where there was so many games on at 3 o'clock. I was on holiday, so I couldn't check out all of the scores and stuff. So I basically needed to have an app on my phone where I could see all of the scores, all of the lineups, everything in one place, all of live goal updates, stuff like that, all in one place. And that's exactly what OneFootball is. So it's really perfect for if you're on the go or you can't watch the game. You just need that app to have the football information on there for you. It's perfect and it's completely free. So do go check it out. The link is in the top of my description. So how does this video work? Well, buys a players you probably don't have but should consider bringing into your team. Sells a players you probably have but should consider removing from your teams. Keeps a players that you probably have but you might be thinking about removing them. I think you should keep them. And avoids finally are players that are pretty hyped right now. A lot of people are buying these players, but I actually think that you should avoid buying these players. So we're going to try and help you get on the right bandwagons, avoid those bad bandwagons, and just make the best use of your transfers possible with some really hopefully positive suggestions, guys. So without further ado, let's have a look at some buys. So my first buy is Raphinha. Now, assuming you have no major injury or suspension problems in your team, assuming that you're free to make any transfer that you want, so my personal #1 transfer target for this week would be Raphinha. Now, Leeds are 100% the team that we want to be investing in right now, particularly their attack. They play a horrific-looking Newcastle team who sit bottom of the table in terms of defences. Newcastle have conceded an insane 16 big chances in 4 games. That's 4 big chances conceded per game. They have an expected goals conceded of 10.5. They've underperformed that and actually conceded 12. Honestly, they sit rock bottom in so many defensive metrics, and it's clear that they are the whipping boys. So immediately, our Leeds attackers should be rewarded by playing Newcastle. Now, after that, we do have West Ham, Watford, Southampton, Wolves and Norwich. So this is an incredible run of fixtures that runs all the way until game week 16. Leeds have been pretty poor defensively, but they have shown some positive signs in attack. And we can expect some goals over this run. And we can confidently predict that the goals and assists are going to come from 2 standout performers in this Leeds side. And those 2 standout performers in attack for Leeds are Raphinha and Bamford, and the 2 of them are literally just head and shoulders above all of their teammates in terms of FPL potential. Now, the reason why I prefer Raphinha is because of his price and his position. 6.5 million versus Bamford's 7.9 million. A midfielder who gets an extra point for a goal, an extra point for a clean sheet. Raphinha is on corners and free kicks as well. So when you factor all of this in, you really need Bamford to be recording much better stats than Raphinha in order for it to be worth going for Bamford over Raphinha. And quite frankly, He's not. They're about even so far this season. They've got similar XG, the same amount of shots, the same amount of big chances, the same amount of big chances created, similar expected assists as well. Bamford is beating Raphinha for shots in the box, but then Raphinha is beating Bamford for chances created. Similar, it's similar in so many ways. There's really not much in it between the 2 players. And when there's not much in it, intuition says that you need to go for that cheaper option who gets more points for doing the same thing, right? That's the obvious one. So Raphinha is obviously the one to go for, right? Which brings us on to our next buy, Patrick Bamford. So, yeah, you probably didn't see that one coming, did you? Because unfortunately, although intuitively maybe we do want to go for Raphinha, a lot of FPL managers have been left in a situation where they either have Antonio or DCL or both in their squads, and both of those guys are unavailable for Game Week 5. And if you don't have anything to cover them from your bench, you can't easily create cover from using your transfers as well. You may be forced to transfer one of them out. The biggest question on a lot of people's mind is who is the best Antonio/DCL replacement for this game week? And my answer to that question is Bamford. Even though I prefer Raphinha as an FPL pick in general, Bamford may be a far better transfer for you simply because of the player that you're transferring out. And although it probably sounded like I was advising against Bamford before, honestly, I think the two of them are both great picks. You know, even if you want to go for both of them, I think that would be a great option to do both of them as well. I do think Bamford does have his advantages over Raphinha as well. They both have, different advantages. So first of all, Bamford's likely to be on penalties should one come leads his way, assuming that Click is not playing on the pitch at the time. Secondly, he is getting into some good positions, which we quite like. He's shooting in those more dangerous positions as well. So it's not that he's necessarily worth 1.4 million extra. He's probably not worth the 1.4 million extra. But if you're asking me who might get more points out of Raphinha and Bamford over the next few game weeks, Bamford is actually kind of likely to come out slightly on top above Raphinha. Just not so much so that it's worth that extra money in a straight battle. But with FPL, obviously, it's not usually a straight battle between two players because we do need to factor in our formations, our positionings, who are we transferring out to get in these players. Is far more complicated than that. And in many, many cases, Bamford is going to be the right transfer move for you to go for instead. So if you are going to make this transfer, I think it's a slam dunk situation. It's an easy, obvious transfer move for you to make if you are looking for that forward replacement. What I would say is just be a little bit patient on this one, because I know although it's a really obvious transfer that you shouldn't be overthinking, there is one minor concern about Bamford's hamstring injury, a potential injury that he has. He did say very, very quietly just before an interview that he had on TV that his hamstring was pinging. We don't know exactly what that means. Hopefully we're going to get a little bit more information in press conferences or if we see Bamford in training, and that's going to answer that hopefully. I really, really doubt that there is any problem with Bamford. He was probably just really tired out playing, as part of a 10-man team against Liverpool. He's probably just tired out, but there is that small chance that he might have a slight problem with his hamstring, and there really is no harm in just waiting a couple of days to find out for sure, to make sure he's all good and all okay. On to some sales. We'll start you off with Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Now, unfortunately, it has been confirmed that DCL not only has a broken toe, but he has also injured his quadriceps and will be out for, and I quote, 2 to 3 weeks, maybe more. So this is going to mean he's going to be out for the Villa game this game week. Then he's going to be out for that amazing Norwich fixture in game week 6, and possibly even a week or two after that. So if you're eyeing up a wild card around game week 7 or 8, DCL is basically useless to you. He's not going to be able to play any more games for you between now and your wild card. So you kind of have to remove him. Even if you're not on a wild card, you can't really tie up 8.2 million of your budget like this in a crucial attack position like this. And I would still recommend strongly that you do transfer him out, no matter who you are. If you have him, he kind of just needs to go. Now, like I said, Bamford is the obvious direct replacement, but he's not the only replacement. So, for example, if you've still got Bruno in your team or another premium-ish midfielder there, you can swap out an expensive midfielder and DCL and bring in Ronaldo and Raphinha, for example. Or if you need to go for someone slightly cheaper, you could go Ronaldo and Damari Gray in. Something like that. You can kind of take the -4, or maybe if you've got 2 transfers, you can use both of your transfers if you have 2 already, and you can really greatly improve your team by doing that. You can bring in Ronaldo now if you didn't do it last week, because a lot of you guys, maybe you didn't go for Ronaldo last week, you might find yourself now in a position with a great way of getting him in this week instead. So, every cloud has a silver lining, I suppose, in a way. There's also Jimenez. If you wanted to replace DCL with Raul Jimenez, that's not a bad option. I do prefer Bamford this week, but Jimenez is potentially an option too. Lukaku is obviously a possibility if you can make that transfer work. So if you have DCL, I really would recommend you replace him with one of those 4 forwards that I just mentioned. So Bamford, Ronaldo, Jimenez, or Lukaku. Whatever works best for you. Anyone else outside of that is probably a little bit too risky. My next sell is Saeed Benrahma. I said last week that you should probably avoid Benrahma, as I think he is a bit of a at risk of rotation, or at least getting subbed off early, and also that his numbers were likely to drop off after the international break. And I think that's kind of already starting to come true. You know, getting subbed off early, not really providing very good underlying stats, and not really providing anything in terms of FPL points either. And with West Ham, you know, they're about to play one of the you know, these tougher defenses in the league, Manchester United. Now could actually be quite a nice time to sell Benrahma. So anyway, to rotation, Fornals, Bowen, Vlasic, Yarmolenko, even Lanzini, they're all likely to rotate in those supporting attack roles over the coming weeks, especially given that West Ham now have Europa League games to contend with and a tricky League Cup game next week against Manchester United. Again, there will be a little bit of rotation. There will be early subbings off. But on top of that, Benrahma's stats over the last 2 games have looked completely different to the first 2 games. He has taken just 3 shots in the last 2 games, none of which have been in particularly dangerous positions. He has made just 3 key passes. Again, these have not created dangerous chances either. I don't think Benrahma is a bad pick necessarily, and you can certainly do worse than to keep him in your squad. He is kind of, you know, a cheap player after all. But if there are no other major issues in your squad, there are a lot of better options to go for right now at a similar price. So Raphinha, for example, a great replacement if you have a little bit of money in your bank. That's a move that I'm very, very keen on indeed. But there are also the Everton boys, Gray, Decore. They're looking fabulous with some great fixtures as well. They could provide some great Everton attacking cover in the absence of DCL. There's also Sarr at Watford, who plays Norwich and then Newcastle in the next 2. So if you fancy that as a short-term option, you could go for that. So as I say, as long as you have no other major problems in your team, there are actually some really, really positive transfer moves you can make that involve removing Benrahma from your team. So you might want to consider it. On to some keeps, and we're going to start you off with Michail Antonio, Benrahma's teammate. Actually, I think this one you should actually keep, which is probably surprising to some of you guys, considering he can't even play in Game Week 5. Why would you keep a player who can't even play in Game Week 5? They can't even play this game week. Well, because you'd be playing the long game, the patient game. And honestly, I can think of so many more reasons to keep Antonio than to sell him, provided you have you know, someone on your bench right now who can cover him for 1 game. You've got to have that cover. But if you have that, there are so many reasons to bring him in. You know, if you have any kind of player on your bench, like a player that can get you 2 points, even if it's like a Brownhill or someone who can just come on, or a Bissouma, get you 2 points or 3 points or 1 point even, and just cover you. Maybe you have like a Shane Duffy on your bench who can come in for 1 week, even has the potential to get you a clean sheet there. These could provide really nice 1 game week covers for Antonio. But let me tell you why I really want to keep Antonio in my team, even though he won't be playing. I'll just leave him on my bench for this week. So, first of all, he's the golden rule kind of thing with Antonio is that when he's fit, he's an absolute cheat code, and he is fit. He's not injured, he's suspended, and we know for sure that he is going to be available for game week 6. Now, Antonio, despite getting a -1 last game week, is still the top scoring FPL player this season so far. So in a way, he has scored more than every other player in the league in FPL, despite only scoring points in 3 out of 4 game weeks. He arguably played 3 game weeks, did so well that he thought, we need to give all the other players a little bit of time to catch up. Let's take a -point, give everyone else a chance. Still, no one can catch up with Antonio. He is flying as an FPL asset. He is insane. His underlying stats are insane. He is second for shots taken. He is second for shots in the box. He's got the highest XG in the league so far. The most big chances out of anyone. He's also created 3 big chances, which is the second in the league. Only Trent Alexander-Arnold has created more big chances than Antonio. He's generated the second most expected assists in the game. It's insane. He is so good in pretty much every single aspect. He is just the #1 FPL asset to have right now. And I know he can't play this week, but you want him. You want to have him. But there's more, guys. There's more. So his Game Week 5 fixture would have been against United, a game he was likely to score poorly in anyway. And really, we'd be targeting the fixture after against you know, a leaky Leeds side with injury and suspension problems at the back. then kind of a newly promoted Brentford team after that. And if you sell him now and you want him back later, you have to buy him back for 7.9 million. And depending on when you first bought Antonio, you're kind of guaranteed to lose money. And if you don't have spare cash in your bank, you may even price yourself out of getting him back into your team. Now, on top of this, when game week 6 rolls around and you still have Antonio in your team, or assuming you keep him, you could see yourself with a major advantage over your impatient mini league rivals who rush to sell him out of their teams. So there are so many advantages to keeping Antonio, and I know not everyone will agree with this, but to me, he is a solid keep, and as long as you can cover him for that one game week with your bench, that is what benches are for after all, I think you could find yourself with a real advantage over, a few game weeks. Rather than just thinking about one game week, if you think over the course of a couple of game weeks, I think you could be at a real advantage if you can manage to keep Antonio in your team. Next up is Mason Mount. This one's probably going to surprise a few of you guys since I usually advise against Mason Mount this season so far. But I know a lot of you guys do have him in your team. He's kind of super popular and he's really a heavily sold player this game week since he didn't play in game week 4. And I thought, honestly, I could use this as a good time to try and help some of you guys out with dealing with teams that rotate their players. So we have these managers like Guardiola, Tuchel, who like to rotate their starting 11. And in FPL, what we often see is when a player gets dropped for one game, suddenly everyone wants to sell that player. But with rotation managers, this is the opposite of what you should do, because when a player like Mount, for example, doesn't play in one game week, under Tuchel, this actually increases the likelihood of him playing the following game week. And that is kind of what rest and rotation is all about after all, keeping players fresh so they're ready to play in future games. You'd actually be better off transferring Mount out after he's just played a game rather than in a situation where he hasn't played. And since Chelsea are about to face a Spurs side who have glaring issues at centre-back with the fitness of Dyer, Romero, Sanchez, now the suspension of Tanganga as well, Chelsea could really take advantage of this, and Mount could end up getting a really good score. Now, cards on the table, guys. I still don't think Mount is a particularly good FPL pick. I certainly would not be buying him, but if I had him, he certainly would not be a priority transfer out for me. And since I was kind of struggling to find a second player that would make a good keep this week, I thought instead we could use Mount as an example of why you shouldn't panic when it comes to rotation managers rotating your FPL players. On to some avoids. We're going to start off with Odsonne Edouard. Now, this kind of comes to the part of the video where I crush all of your dreams. For the record, guys, I do like Odsonne Edouard. You guys who joined me on the deadline stream I did before Game Week 4, you may have actually heard me say that he's actually my favourite forward under 6.5 million. But we have to be realistic here and look at more than just the score of the player and look at the scenario. And the scenario was that Edouard came on against an exhausted Spurs side that have spent most of the game playing with 10 men, chasing the game, playing with a left back at centre back due to injuries, a very light midfield. And now I'm not saying it's easy to come on and score 2 goals, but certainly a lot of factors were in his favour. Factors that will not be there when he faces Liverpool in the next game. Guys, I probably don't need to tell most of you that bringing in an attacker who is about to play an away game against Liverpool is probably not the brightest idea. And even after that, it's kind of a tricky game against Brighton, then Leicester, then Arsenal, which fair enough, is a bit of a mystery at the moment. Palace do, however, play Newcastle in game week 9, so I definitely agree that this is a player we should be keeping a very strong, super close eye on. I think he's going to do really well in the Premier League, but he is a wait and see. Let's monitor him, because I think if you do buy him this game week, you will be disappointed, because he's not likely to do very well against Liverpool. Maybe you should just be a little bit patient here and wait and see. And the final avoid is Mateo Kovacic. Sometimes the perfect avoid just kind of lands perfectly on your plate. The knee-jerk transfer of the week award has to go to Kovacic for this game week. So top point scorer of game week 4 with 13 points, a goal, an assist, a clean sheet, 2 bonus points. But is he ever doing that again? Not a chance. He's never done it before. He's probably never going to do it again, because it's not just that Kovacic doesn't score very many goals for Chelsea. It's the fact that despite this being his 4th season for Chelsea, that was only his 2nd ever Premier League goal. He is not even a 1 goal per season player. He's a 1 goal every other season player. And if this pattern is anything to go by, those that have just transferred in Kovacic will be waiting another 2 years before he bags another goal. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we've got a few wild cards between now and 2 years' time. So it might just be worth waiting until, you know, the 2023-24 season, and maybe just starting off with Kovacic in your Game Week 1 team there, and you could just get him in for free rather than have to use your transfers. And now, of course, guys, I am joking around a little bit there. Kovacic is a fantastic player, and he's massively important to this Chelsea side, but his role in the team isn't to score goals. It's not even really to assist either, really. He's only got 8 Premier League assists since arriving at Chelsea. It's just not really his job, which unfortunately means he's one of those awkward players that just is not really suitable for FPL. Kind of like a Kante, Phillips, Ndidi, Partey, these kind of players who are kind of decent players in real life, but completely useless players when it comes to fantasy Premier League. And you know, I just think that, like those other guys, you know, we talk about Kante as being a good player who is a complete avoid in FPL. I think we have to say that Kovacic is a nice and easy avoid to finish off this video. So to summarise this video, if you have DCL, your priority is to remove him from your team and replace him. Your top transfer targets this week should be Leeds attackers. Raphinha and Bamford are the clear best options from Leeds, so your best bet is to just get one of those. DCL to Bamford is a super obvious transfer, but it may be worth waiting to confirm Bamford's fitness due to those rumours flying about. I think you guys should try and keep Antonio if it's possible, but I totally understand if it's not possible for you guys. You know, it's not going to be possible for all of us. And finally, try and avoid those knee-jerkers, Edouard and Kovacic. Thank you for watching, guys. I hope you did enjoy this video. If you did, please do leave a like and please do subscribe if you're new around here before you leave. There'll be plenty more FPL content pretty much every single day on this channel. Yeah, we're full grind at the moment, aren't we? What have we got this week? Okay, we've got the 100 expert videos still to come. We've got my team selection video, and I'm going to try and squeeze in a wild card video at some point as well. And of course, we're going to finish off on Friday with a deadline stream. Yeah, so that's the schedule for this week. There's also already content, Game Week 5 content on my channel already if you want to go check that out. And yeah, that's pretty much it from me today. So guys, thank you once again for watching, and I will see you later, mates. Bye-bye.